Our attention is now on Nigeria's hopes and aspirations after its independence in 1960. Associate Professor of Political Science at the University of Lagos, Laja Odukoya, is with us to have this conversation. Thanks for joining us and happy Independence Day.
Thank you to Happy Independence.
So we've talked so much about the national identity, the national dream in 1960. You are a professor, Associate Professor of Political Science. As the frameworks of this country was laid in 1960, what do you think was the national plan and dream?
Thank you so much. If we must understand what happened in 1960 and the attendance, hope, and aspiration in conjunction with that epochal events, we must consciously go back and try to understand what we mean by colonialism and its relationship with imperialism. Colonialism is a system whereby you have external domination of a country's affairs. That is to say, the political and economy, social, and other related activities, including developmental activities of that nation, of the nation, is not in the interest or does not work for the citizen of that citizen or of that country. You see a situation whereby that country is dominated and controlled for and in the interest of an external power. And that is related to what we mean by imperialism. A situation whereby a country is dominated, exploited by another country and for another country. So therefore, that country is not a developmental country or a people-centered country, and the citizens of that country, they are not free. They are dominated, they are subjected. So when you now talk in the context of independence, therefore, it is now understandable that you have a situation whereby people are moving away from colonialism. The country is now free. The citizens are free. Resources of that country will be used for the benefit of citizens of the country. So that is the condition we have 60 years ago, whereby the Union Jack was lowered down, and we have seemingly independent, and seemingly, because we'll get to that. So what we have therefore is a situation whereby our country is no longer dominated. As citizens, we expected purposeful governance, we expected development, and the way it was couched then, we expected life more abundance. But you ask yourself today, 60 years down the line, have we actually achieved that? And again, it was not just about us. Because of the centrality, because of the position of this country as the largest, the most populous black nation in the world, there was so much sentimental attachment to the country and expectation, not just by Nigeria, but the whole of the black race, that a champion has come to lead us to the promised land.
And that's where I'm going to, because we saw Nigeria taking its place in the Committee of Nations. How did we achieve that at that time?
You see, that might equally be part of the problem we have today, because when you go back to our history, we have a union that was forged in spite of us. And when I say in spite of us, the units that compose this country, there was no time we sat down to say that consciously we want to be Nigerians. My great-grandfather were not Nigerians. Yours were not Nigerians. Nigeria was an accident of British colonialism. Let me finish. The implication of that is that the nation was formed, not by us, and again, the process of independence was not through a struggle. It was actually, in fact, when we should be fighting the colonialists, our nationalists were busy fighting themselves, trying to position themselves.
Wasn't it through a struggle, though? Because we saw the first move in 1953 by Anthony Nahoro, and then we saw the next move by Ladoke Akintola. We saw the next move by Remi Fani-Kayode, and then finally in 1959 when Tafawa Balewa moved for independence. So it looks like it started in 1953 and it was a struggle till 1960.
No, the independence struggle actually predated that. If you want to understand the independence struggle, we must go back to even 2023 in Lagos, when the Abat Macaulay of this world actually started. The move for involvement of our people in governance, and and that's what I'm getting at. You have incremental concession by colonialists, you understand? And by the time we got to around 1937, 1938, when we have the Nigerian youth movement, you understand, which is actually an umbrella body that actually have Nigerians together. But no sooner than that, you had crack within it, when you have the Oshara of Ishara, Akesanya, and Zikwe struggling, Ernest Okoli, Awolowo, they are on the same part. The issue of ethnicity actually cropped into Nigerian politics at that time. The Nigerian youth movement broke down. You later start having the action group. Later you have NCP, and quite on a number of this. So what I'm getting at is that what you even saw at the level of 1953 you are referring to, don't forget there was even no consensus. Anthony's announced movement for independence was a Western Nigerian affairs. The North were not ready. They said they were not ready. So you now start having incremental concession. That's what I'm getting at. So we started fighting ourselves. The people we were fighting became the empire, the moderator. You understand? So at the end of the day, and this is very important and instructive, what we had was political independence, which some people would call flag independence, without economic independence. And we got to independence, highly divided, highly fragmented, and we never got into independence as one nation. In fact, way back 1940s, Awolowo said Nigeria is a mere geographical expression. Tafawa Balewa said Nigeria was a mistake of 1914. So when we got to independence, there was no Nigerian nation, so to say, where people can relate to say we are Nigerians. From inception, we have a situation whereby what we have
because you mentioned that, I want to take a comment by Sir Tafawa Balewa, where he said in less than 200 years, he visited the United States, and he said in less than 200 years, this great country, America, was welded together by people of so many different backgrounds. They built a mighty nation and had forgotten where they came from and who their ancestors were. And while he was writing a letter to a friend, he said, look, I'm a changed man from today. Until now, I never really believed Nigeria could be a united country, but if the Americans can do it, so can we. Doesn't that talk about people who eventually saw the possibility of nationhood?
Yeah, thank you very much. The operational word in what the quotation from Tafawa Balewa is welded together. And that is very significant. It's like when we talk about wedding, the normal matrimony, and the instructive word is that it's a very interesting affairs whereby 1 + 1 becomes 1. You understand? But in Nigeria, of course, we are increasingly fragmented. And again, in fairness to Tafawa Balewa, in fairness to Awolowo, in fairness to the sick of this world, that's why there are limitations. You will still concede a lot of things to them in terms of even minimum struggle to actually say, okay, let's have a nation. You understand? But you can't, the elements, the politicians we have today, you can't talk that much about that. For example, today...
Let's go back to the question I asked you earlier, which is the fact that we saw several times when someone like Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa will go to places like America or the UK, he received resounding audience, and people respected him. People listened to him as someone who was the leader of this country. Nigeria took its place in the Committee of Nations. He stood as an advisor several times to countries. So how did we achieve that feat at that time?
Yeah. Don't forget, Tafawa Balewa left the scene barely 6 years after independence. We were still in what I would call the honeymoon of independence. The dreams are still not evaporated. People were still ready to grant us some, they just started and things like that. And I've told you, you can't compare, despite their limitations, you can't compare the leadership we had in the First Republic with the leadership we have today. We have one of the best bureaucracies in Africa, in anywhere in the world. Our bureaucracy were manned by, particularly Western Nigeria, were manned by professionals. Again, in terms of development, there was healthy rivalry. Everybody wanted to be, just like a lot of progress, the Western region was a pace setter. The East were not even left behind. The North were not left behind. They were doing their own. You understand? But today, our politicians are only interested in their pockets. Our politicians are only interested in their pockets. Nobody is talking about the nation. Nigeria today is highly fragmented. And if you have anybody to blame, you blame the political
and I'm
leadership.
sure that's why the president, well, or the presidency actually chose the team together. But you said something about how the different regions were doing well. And let's talk about the derivation formula. The revenue from cocoa went to the west. The revenue for palm kernel went to the east, and that of granite went to the north. It looks like that regionalization, if I may use that word, did work for them at that time. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was not regionalization. You see, for example, let me put it this way. People talk about true federalism. Well, let's say it. There is nothing like true or false federalism. Federalism is historically specific and situational specific. So what am I saying? What we still had then was not regionalism. It was regionalism within the context of federalism. What has happened? And here, when I heard the president this morning talking about past governments until 1999, what they have done for the country, he forgot that he was equally part of that government, that he was 83 to 85, thereby was actually this thing. The military regime actually is a major problem in the trajectory we find ourselves. What do I mean? Over-centralization, and that's what you were saying. Over-centralization. The problem we're having today is that there is so much concentration of power and resources at the federal level, such that the states are no longer doing anything. All they just do is that we have what some people, if I can quote it, we call feeding bottom federalism. People go hand in hand to the federal government to beg for money. So, except for even the 13% you are giving the resources, the state should be stronger than the federal government. The federal government has to look at basic things like currency, security, foreign affairs, and things like that. There's so much power at the federal level, and that's the problem. Then, the beauty of what we call that regionalism is that the resources, 50% of resources, goes end from each state, goes to those states. So they can plan what they want to do. They can do everything. But now everybody wants money to Abuja. A federal state is not on that way.
All right, so you mentioned, I mean, this brings us to the issue of the Constitution. A lot of people seem to be saying, look, let's amend the Constitution. Now we see that this National Assembly is doing that. There are a few thematic issues they want to look at in the Constitution. But for you, when you look at the history of our Constitution, whether it was the Macpherson or the Littleton or the 1977 Constitution, which one stands out for you as to the development of Nigeria and running the country in true federalism?
Yeah, thank you so much. I said, if we have to start talking about federalism, we actually start talking around 1950 something. But let's leave the pre-independent this thing. You see, the constitutional review since 1979 has been a platform for our legislator to actually enrich themselves. It has actually become another monumental fraud because it takes so much time, they go all over the country, they get so much allowance and things like that. There has not been any sincerity in terms of what they are doing. And even go back and look at what has been done. What we still have is, we have an overbearing federal government. What we are having is unitary federalism. So, if you're talking about, in terms of our past constitution, you still go back to the First Republic. You understand? Because the regions or the constituent states are not dependent on the federal, on the central authority. They are not. And that's the way it should be. So without necessarily suggesting that constitution, whatever review anybody is doing, we must go back to a situation whereby we have a federal constitution that will work. And that federal constitution must be one that you have serious devolution of power, serious devolution of resources, and responsibility. For goodness sake, where you have federal roads in Lagos, where was the controller of works in Abuja, the controlling roads in Lagos? These things are not done in modern states.
All right, I'm afraid we do have to leave it there. Just hold that particular thought there. We need to join our correspondent in Maiduguri. Jesse Tafita joins us now from Maiduguri. Jesse, talk to us about the situation there in Borno State. How is Independence Day being celebrated, considering the insecurity situation there?
Very much precious. And usually, 1st October in Maiduguri, I used to record a lot of activities. In the morning, when it's 1st October, a lot of people going out en masse, converging at the Ramat where the governor will come and make a speech. But today, Ramat Square is a shadow of itself. When I went there in the morning, everything is just empty. And I was talking to people about the Independence Day. I was asking why is it on the low key. A lot of people are lamenting over the hardship they're experiencing over the years. You know, people from this part of the country have been devastated by insurgency. And most of them, when I spoke with them, they don't feel like celebrating because they are in hardship, they are in problem.
All right, we seem to be having network challenges there with Jesse. When we have that fixed, we'll get back to him. All right, let's get back to you, Professor Laja. Now, when you look at, you have mentioned the issue of the Constitution, and you are saying that, look, we don't have to go back to any one of them, we need to fix it. In fixing this Constitution, we've seen the several points raised by the National Assembly, or several issues to be fixed, issues around policing, gender equality, and all of that. What do you think that we should start from in fixing some of these issues?
In the first place, we must know that people are put in charge of the state to actually manage the state on behalf of the people. And this denier of or deceit to tell the people are the government is neither here nor there. We have people that are in the government. The first thing for me is to fix our democracy. You understand? And fixing our democracy for me entails putting people who are committed to the country. I'm saying, and I repeat for emphasis, a large chunk of the politicians we have here today are self-serving. They are not there for the people. And that's why what we have witnessed in the last 20 years or so is what I call democratization of disempowerment. Democracy without the people. People get to power without the people. And consequently, when they get there, they can't serve the interests of the people. One of the problems we are having, why we can't fix some of these problems, is that, for instance, within the the president was talking about problems in terms of economy and things like that. He cannot address, and they will not address the cost of governance. If you are telling me that why should Nigeria pay less than Saudi Arabia for oil, for instance? It's begging the issue. What is the per capita income in Saudi Arabia? $22,865. What is the per capita income in Nigeria? $2,222. Are we on the same level? So what am I saying? We need people that are sincere in government so that they can fix all this.
All right, so let's talk about people. In that era, that independence era, or the pre-independence era, one of the things that we saw was a collaboration between the older generation and the younger generation. Today, it looks like them versus us. But then we saw how the 80-year-old Herbert Macaulay and 40-year-old Nnamdi Azikiwe came together to form the NCNC. Can we speak to that kind of collaboration in that era?
Thank you so much. And it's very important you've raised this issue. It equally takes us back to the military era. You see, by the time we had the first school, by the time we came back in 1979, some of the old, permit me to use the old politicians, I was going to say old brigade, but old politicians, the Zik of this world, the Awolowo, the Shagari, the Aminu Kano, active players in the First Republic were still much around. So they were still able to guide and set the templates for the democracy we had during that time. So what am I getting? Everybody was then a stakeholder. For you to be a member of the UPN, it is not our using his money to fund the party. Everybody contributes money for the party and you become a stakeholder. So when you get there, the people have a stake. It's not about Godfather. But what do you start having under Babangida? You remember the NRC and SDP. You understand? What we call the parastatal political party. Party created not by the people, but by the government, and funded by the government. Even ideologies were imposed on them by the government. Then we start having what we call then new breed politician, which was a total break from the past. People, don't forget, we equally stopped teaching history in our schools. So consequently, you now have political parties that are owned by big men.
But it does look like there was a succession plan that was truncated, maybe by the military coup or something, but it does look like, because when you look at that kind of collaboration, it looks like there was that deliberate succession plan. So
when political parties are owned by the people, are funded by the people, you have what we call internal democracy. You understand? It's not a party of the big men, of the godfather, that you have imposition. So people are washed and people get to power not because they have money, but because people know them. They have pedigree. They have been trained. They are cadres, and they know they can serve and deliver to the people. And they live with the people. But what we have now, we have absentee politicians.
But
people live in Abuja and want to control Somali local government.
But it does also look like a deliberate attempt by young persons to also get involved. There was this deliberate, for someone like, I mean, they were all young, in their 30s, in their late 30s, early 30s, early 40s, being deliberate about being part of governance.
Then, it's passion that informs your involvement. People sort you out. Now, it's the depth of your pocket. We have a situation of highly bloody monetization of politics. No matter the idea. Let me give you an example. Some years back, I was in Shomolu local government. I think it was after my master's distance. I just felt, we cannot perpetually become critic. Let's get involved. I was going to contest for the Shomolu local government. The man is still alive. I won't mention it, one of the big politicians in Lagos today. You know what they said? By the time they saw my CV, this one will not listen to us. You understand? Deliberately, there is a policy of deliberate exclusion. Do you know how much it costs to contest election in Nigeria today? Where is the young man getting that money? They have been fenced off now. But then, nobody will ask you whether you have money. The party will sponsor your election. So that's the difference. And of course, we have a situation of weaponization of poverty. People graduate, they have MSc, they have BSc, they don't have a job. Where do they get the kind of money?
But Professor,
and they have, let me say, they have actually made it now convenient that the best the youth can get is PAs to this and that. That's unfortunate.
All right, Professor Dukoya, quickly, I just want you to look at that era, the independence era. What stood out for you that you think that we can imbibe today?
Commitment, service, and dedication. Then there's still this idea that we can make this nation work. But now, you hear Arewa today, you hear Odua tomorrow, you hear, what do you call it? Biafra next tomorrow. The nation has become highly over fragmentized. All right. So that is unfortunate. And our leaders are not bothered about that. And when I heard the president today talking about the reality.
I'm afraid we have to leave it there. Associate Professor, University of Lagos, Laja Odukoya, thanks for talking to us.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.